Welcome to the March 2026 episode of the Big Brilla Podcast, proudly the biggest Mississippi Brilla FC podcast in the world, coming to you from the Big Brilla Podcast studio with my digital backdrop and all of that. You know, it is amazing what a green screen can do for your home office. First, let me tell you that the Big Brilla Podcast is proudly brought to you by the Taylor Group with Keller Williams Realty. Both Scott and Amanda Taylor are from the Clinton area, and they take pride in walking beside both first-time home buyers and seasoned home buying veterans. You know, they said that the percentage rate is starting to come down, so now is your time. Put the Taylor Group of Keller Williams to work for you. You can call Scott at 601-613-3856. You can also email him at scott.taylor@kw.com or visit their website at thetaylorgroup.co. That's thetaylorgroup.co. My name is Robert Chapman, and although we're at the very front end of March, the 2026 USL League Two season isn't too far away, especially if you're looking at it from the lenses of those behind the scenes. The logistics have been lined up, and we are way past being in the thick of it already. So we got a handful of benchmarks that have already been met. First of all, the biggest thing, Coach Mike Azira is coming back for his third season. That's a great thing right there. Mississippi College's Robinson Hill Field has been named as the home venue of Mississippi Brilla FC for 2026. The boys in blue have played at Arrow Field on the campus of Clinton High School for close to a decade, if not more. But since Mississippi College dissolved their American football program, the venue works for summer soccer. Brilla Executive Director Rusty Bryant told me that the club is forever grateful to the Clinton Public School District for allowing Brilla to use their facilities, but there are some advantages to moving the venues that make sense for all involved. You know, one of the things he told me about was the weight room facilities being right next to the pitch so they can kind of go back and forth to, you know, wearing the guys out and getting them ready for the season. Also, home dates have been announced as well. May 23rd, Brilla hosts the Little Rock Rangers, or as we like to call them, the Little Rock Rangers, right? A little emphasis on it, the Little Rock Rangers. We have Hattiesburg FC coming to town on May 27th. June the 3rd, Brilla hosts Red River before they take on the two newest teams in the USL2 and the Mid-South Division. June 24th, the day after my anniversary. My wife is excited. We'll actually get to do something on our anniversary instead of soccer. June 24th, Brilla welcomes Memphis FC and the Jackson Boom from Jackson, Tennessee, on June 27th. And then the final home match will be July 8th against Louisiana Crew FC. Now, with the coach and the venue and dates all set in place, Rusty and Co. are steadily working on securing their sponsors and filling out a roster. I did see today, today is Monday, the 2nd, I believe it is. I've been getting the dates messed up, but today is Monday, and I already saw a handful of names starting to come out on the social medias of who's going to be on that roster. The second part is what we're going to talk about today, about filling that roster. We're continuing to look behind the scenes of how Mississippi Brilla FC is preparing for the approaching season. And with me today is none other than the one and only Justin Roberts, who has many different things going on with Mississippi Brilla FC, Big Brilla, Little Brilla, all the things. Everybody knows him as J-Rob. So, J-Rob, it is good to see you and talk to you today. What you been up to?
That's a busy time of year. Thanks for having me on. We're starting to prepare for obviously the spring season is in the final stretch in the youth soccer world, and starting to think about the birth year change. We have a different grid in terms of how that's going to be structured for next year. So, and then I get to see some of the team being built for the summer. So, plenty of work to be done.
So now, before we get going into all things recruiting and kind of getting in the mindset of what a coach would think, you've got a stout history with the game, with the region, and with Brilla. You were a former member of the team yourself, if I'm not mistaken. What do you remember about playing all those many years ago?
Yeah, good question. I think it was before podcasts were out, so that's how long ago it was. No, it was special to be a part of the first few years of The league was called the Premier Development League, PDL. Back then, we were predominantly a local group of players, mainly guys that were still playing in college and coaching youth club. And then outside of the metro area, it was a lot of in-state or within the region players. Kind of contacts were generated from within the conference of the coach of the year. That was sort of the context. The things I remember most were um, competing at a pretty good level with people we had relationships with, through the rest of our communities. That was special, playing in front of our friends and families and old teammates, and the community support that we had back then isn't what we have now. So I believe in year one we were on campus at Mississippi College. By the way, it was on the grass in the soccer field. That was 2007, by the way. We averaged over 1,000 fans a game. So if you can imagine that facility, it looked pretty full. So there's a lot of energy.
For sure. I remember coming to some of those games and seeing, getting to talk to other people in the stands of, these are some of the guys I used to compete against back when I was 12 and 13 and 14. And then seeing everybody all grown up, being uber talented, and I properly had my spot in the stands where I belong. So it was a lot of fun.
But you have the microphone now. You selected well. You developed a career.
True. I tell everybody I am a professional spectator. Everybody else gets to go and perform, and I just get to chit chat about it. So let's say we're hypothetical coaches right now. We're going to field a team. And we need, obviously we're going to put 11 on the pitch. We need attackers. We need defenders, people with good ball control, people with good vision. I need height. I need muscle. If I can get a tall center back that can put somebody on the ground, I want to do that. Like I know what I want, but I also probably need a few goalkeepers. We saw last year when Sebastian went down, we moved on to the next step, and that next step wasn't a bad goalkeeper in the slightest at all. So when you've got 1, 2, 3 goalkeepers ready to go, you're set. So where does one even start inside the USL2 to put a team together?
Yeah, good question. When I was thinking about this one, I reflect back on the list of coaches, and each coach has put their particular stamp on the type of team that they were going to build and lead and develop over a couple of years. And that's forged in the relationships that they have, perhaps, in the nature of the competition. USL2 is primarily a summer league for college or developing college players or players that are just beyond their college career.
Yeah, we've said many a time that like this is almost like if you went up to the Cape Cod Baseball League. Like these are guys that are coming from these elite college programs. They're going to come in and these are your future superstars, but they're going to go back to the college program. So this is, like you said, a summer developmental league.
Yep. And so a lot of these guys start, depending on the level, they start college preseason mid to late July, early August. So this is enough to keep them fit and sharp for preseason. So, and then in terms of trying to zoom out from what a particular coach is looking for, when I think back over the last 20, is this the 20th season if you exclude COVID?
I think honestly, I think we talked about this with Rusty one time. I think including COVID, this is the 20th season. So we don't get to technically call it, but it's 20 years.
Well, yeah. So I would say first, every coach is looking for winners, and people that they can trust. Winner, players that would maybe classified as a winner. They have a track record in terms of the programs that they've been a part of that shape some of their mentality, some of their experience, but also their players that you can trust in the game. That late in the game, if you have to have a goal, these are the guys that want the ball. They actually want the ball. You have to have players that you can trust to do the right thing, because by nature, soccer as it relates to a lot of American sports, you have 11 quarterbacks on the field, so you have to be able to really understand the player's thought process. Um, I also think I was reflecting back to the end of last season. Obviously, we all want this year's season to be a lot different from last year, but the staff did sit down, informally and kind of set a few kind of a basic version of a profile, not position specific, but um, we said, the staff said they wanted players that were contributing in their college environment, playing two-thirds or more of those games, depending on the level and how far they go in postseason, somewhere between 18 and 25 games. You want guys that play in 12 to 15 times in the fall. This was a carryover from the previous coach, but they fit with that character and winner piece. You're looking for guys that were captains. That's a data point that that at least in their home, their college environment, they've earned influence and trust from their teammates and their coach. Another little data point is this is somewhat subjective, but all conference, all region, all American honors show that a player's having an impact where they are. We were looking for seasoned players, really sophomore players that have finished their sophomore and junior season because they still have a senior season to prepare for, but they're a little older on the spectrum when they have a college season under their belt. We wanted to prioritize physicality in terms of bigger, stronger athletes. This is the American game. And lastly, we're looking for culture fits. So a cornerstone for that and then in the summer context of Bria is spiritual maturity. So we want guys that are at least open to a Christian environment and would love for all players to be able to contribute to that.
So that if you're looking for winners, if you want 11 captains on the field, then that means that of the 11 captains that are there, one of them is going to be the captain, and one of the 11 is now going to be the number 11. They're not going to be the superstar. So if you can get, we mentioned baseball earlier. If you can have nothing but shortstops out on the field, you're going to be fantastic. Everybody's an athlete. They just have ATH by their name, ready to go. But I think that the character aspect of what you talked about of can they be selfless? Can they be selfish when they need to be? But can they be selfless when they need to be? I'm a systems guy, so I really like looking at is there a way that you can plug in certain aspects to make a decision? You mentioned a data point. So are there any tools or best practices that coaches can use that I guess are objectively subjective that they can go in and say, other than the things you've already mentioned about being all conference, being playing certain number of minutes, is there anything that they can kind of put in a chart to where they can kind of almost rank a player in a systems mentality?
Uh, I would say those are the best APIs, if you will. Um, this time of year, it's not uncommon for 20 to 25 emails a day to arrive with, you know, uh, at least highlight videos for every player who's looking for these opportunities. Some would send a game or multiple games. So in terms of filtering that, it's tough. So I would say the data points are those season metrics. How successful was the team's season in terms of wins and losses? How much did they contribute? How were they recognized within the conference? And the rest is somewhat subjective. You can say, did we have a player from this team, from this conference previously? How did they fit in? How did these two players compare to one another? And then word of mouth is pretty strong. It's certainly subjective, but when you've had a player that's come in and understands the culture and the environment, the expectations, and the league itself, and they're able to speak to another player fitting in well, that's usually worth considering as you plan.
What about the character aspect? You mentioned about being open to at least a spiritual walk, but how do coaches and executives within the various organizations, how do they examine the intangibles? I mean, they're extraordinarily valuable. We talk about to students all the time about how important it is that the intangibles that you go with those soft skills to a job interview, they're important. It's the same thing here. This is a job interview. How do you measure those intangibles?
Um, I would say there are, we have limited opportunities to get to speak to the kids. In an interview, you at least have a few of these. And before you hire somebody, you're going to sit with them face to face. We obviously have access to perhaps some of their teammates or at least players that they've played against. For what it's worth, we had a player that we were pretty excited about signing 2 weeks ago based on a lot of those KPIs. We spoke to a couple coaches in his conference and decided that it was likely not a good fit and moved on. But you can also talk to a player's coach, and a coach can help drive that decision. Without being overly critical of a player, they could talk about where they are in their development as a person and whether they would fit or not. And there's good trust inside of the profession that if a coach gives a recommendation, they would be accountable, going forward in terms of other players that they know getting opportunities here. So that's a useful way of measuring those types of commitments too.
These guys that we get to know every year, they're such young men. It's sometimes hard to not call them kids, especially as I keep inching my way towards 50 now that I'm, a ripe 41. These young 18, 19-year-old kids, these young men, they're young. I mean, but they're coming in, they know what they want, but they're young. Some, like I said, 18, 19 years old. Somewhere in the world, they were their hometown hero. They were the one. They shined in their local league, their local school. Possibly even they were part of a regional ODP squad or group, ECNL team. Another hat you wear is with the Brilla Juniors Academy and Select programs. So how do you utilize your various positions with numerous organizations to assist in creating opportunities for these young players? Because again, we're getting some other communities, awesome young players. Our young players sometimes have the opportunity to go elsewhere. But how do you use your position to help these young players?
Yeah, we're getting this is something I'm pretty excited about. So you can mute me if I'm talking too long. um, I've heard back from another Jackson, a local player, in the last couple of hours, from some conversations on this. But I do my primary role is at Brilla Juniors, and I get to have a good, deep understanding with the staff of what that organization is trying to be and how do we develop the staff. I work with the Rush United ECNL program, so some of the Brilla Juniors kids move that direction, and the various tiers within that organization as well. And one thing we noticed in the last couple of years is um, the American players that land in the summer environment, the USL2 team at Brilla, have played at least at an ECNL growing up, the ones that we bring in. Luke Bryant will be back in the staff this summer, and his experience as a player was parallel to this. He played as a Brilla Juniors player up to U14 or 15, and he was the discovery player for Alabama FC, up through high school, and he played at a good level of college, and made some contributions in the summer, and perhaps will still be playing soccer if you have a little better injury record. So that's a bad luck on that front. But in the last 2 years, the teams from Jackson have access to that league. So we took a step forward in year 2 in terms of our competitiveness across the 6 age groups, and where the team that Luke played on was the top of that conference. We're not that level yet, but we do have access to it. So our hypothesis is, we're able to give our players in that league access to that competition. If we're planning well over the next few years, we should see more kids more ready to contribute to the USL. One of the particular substantive feedback points that's come back from the last couple of versions of the staff, and I'll compare this to what I was talking about when we were primarily a local team, is there's better commitment from the kids who are not from Jackson or not from Mississippi. Again, my first year in the league was the year before there was Brilla, and moved to South Florida, lived and provided accommodation, and I was on the field whenever they said there was a training or a game. And that's the same for the kids that move here. It's different where, at least previously, and there is a perception that the local kids, um, they go on vacation with their family, they miss a week. There's a higher percentage chance that they're going to have different schedule conflicts because they're at home, close to their friends, all of these things. So we did think there were 3 or 4 kids. Um, One's a freshman, Jack Purvis. We think is a player that could get to this level. He's played at Colorado College. Ben Smith is graduated from Madison Central. He's committed to Mississippi College. These are kids that we would say we're really curious over the next 2 or 3 years because of their character and their work rate and their skill sets. We would say that their ceiling is high enough for them to be contributors. We're really curious to see if they can get to that level. So my conversation with those guys since the beginning of the year has been, hey guys, this is the starting point. You know, it's come back more than a couple times that local guys aren't quite as committed. What we it seems the coach wants to sign you. You know, what can we do to improve that? So I'd love for you to get with your parents, help me understand what those commitments are, so that I can pass that along on the front end. Because we want, because of your experience and because of your contribution, we want the door to be more open this time next year because of number one, your commitment, and number two, because you can prove that the Jackson kids deserve more opportunities, with us. Um, so that was around the idea. Did that answer most of your question?
Yeah, it did. It seems like there's a lot of hard conversations that need to be had. It's the same thing that you're having conversations with 18 and 19-year-olds down the road of, I'm going to join the military. Well, that's a commitment. You're going to have to leave. You've got boot camp, yada, yada, yada. You don't have boot camp and you spend the night with your parents, right? You have to go away and you have to do. Those of us who left and went off to college when we hit hard times, we had to kind of find the way to figure out the problem. We couldn't just
Well
go
said.
over to grandma's house. It was just something we had to do. And I think sometimes I kind of read on there, what kind of hurdles are there? I think the hurdle of having an easy fallback net so close can keep people from overcoming extra hard obstacles. However, the ones that can get over that hurdle, they seem to be the ones that super push through really, really hard. There are kids here again. I grew up playing. My son grew up playing. Lots of people here that they think, well, in soccer, especially in Mississippi, what real opportunities exist? I can be fairly good in high school. I can go and play for a really good program at Pearl River, or I can go play at Hines, or I can go play at MC, and then I'll get my degree and then I'm done. But I want to play with these Brazilians. I want to play with these Italians. I want to play with all the people that are coming to Clinton to actually play with this Brilla team. How do you push them to understand what the pursuit actually is?
Hey, good question. Uh, Before I attack the question, I think you said something really well. Because what I mentioned about the 2 guys that we're talking about is we see their ceiling is perhaps high enough to contribute. We don't know if they're good enough right now, and so naturally, as we're trying to be a support network for people trying to improve, that roadmap is rarely linear.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm. You talk about that. This is everybody's life, no matter
yeah.
what you are. It's not linear. You're correct.
I can remember the second Mississippi Brilla FC game two, the second game we ever played. I remember walking up to the, oh gosh, hopefully Dave listens to this. Walking up to the sheet for the 11 to see who's starting, to see where I'm starting, and my name wasn't on there. And I can remember, like, I mean, I didn't, I was a decent player. Had started all the games in my life, high school, college so far, and I remember going like, this is not a typo, and like wondering if my eyes are seeing this wrong, and really, really strong learning opportunities for personal growth, humility, um, self reflection for how important is this to me? What is my role in this team? Not especially as it contrasts with my identity as a starter. So I do think that, like you said, when a player is in their comfort zone, close to their friends, etc., that's a very different place as compared to where you're going to go back to the dorm and you can text home, but you just got to get back after it tomorrow. So um, I do think that's really important. Remind me of the question. I wanted to hit on that one.
I just want to know with you coaches, Rusty, like when you're talking to these local players, but also all these other players that come here who are still fighting for this dream, they're going to have to find, they're in second, third, fourth gear. They're going to have to get up to ninth, 10th, 11th gear. This is not just the drive your car around. This is the F1. You're trying to get up there, the big dogs. How do you help them understand the path to take to get to that next level?
Yeah, I think part of it is being in an uncomfortable environment, and that realization that the things that have made you successful so far in your journey in the game might not be what takes you to the next step.
Yeah, you're right.
You
There's
know,
a book called "What Got You Here Isn't What's Going to Keep You Here." So you're exactly right.
yeah, and for most players playing USL 2 level, um, they were like, I think you said this before. They're the best player in their environment, um, and some players can keep doing that. The top few players, small percentage, can, their ceiling is high enough that this is a step that they can take in stride and they go. However, I think when you look at, oh, here's one. Here's a great story. Coach Mike Azera. What a story. Played at Lindsey Wilson, NAI royalty, finished at the University of Mobile, not drafted, no contract after his senior year, played at Brilla, no contract. He's not a pro. He's done with college, stuck around. Mike, sorry if I'm getting some of this wrong, but I think you're probably right. The beginning of the next year, I think he signed at Charleston Battery, USL Championship, maybe did 2 years with the Battery. Everyone saw he had plenty of opportunities to prove the kind of player he was, went on to a 10-year career in MLS. And I think that's what USL2 is good for. It gives players a platform to continue to grow and put themselves on a platform to show they deserve opportunities.
You're very well connected in the soccer world at numerous levels and in numerous avenues, I guess, be it with players, coaches, even referees and officials. Like I know for a fact that you go and you help with some of their, with the coaching levels, kind of go up and down. The same with the referees. Your experiences have positioned you to be that connector of networks. It's something that I do in my professional life where everybody else is so much better at the things that I do. I just know everybody. So if I can connect person A to person B, that's my job. And that's one of the skills that you have as well. Clubs all around the nation have J-Robs of their own that can play that role of helper. So how have you seen your network grow the more that you help position others within the game?
Yeah. Um, I think I'll reflect back to the principle that we talked about when we were talking about finding players and especially the soft skills. Like, you see a player and you decide this is a player that fits. Um, but you need to do your homework. Is this a person that can fit with us? And so what I've found is in conversations like that, you find individuals, coaches, administrators, club leaders, referees with similar values. Through those conversations, obviously, those are the people that have had similar impact with the players that you work with in different environments. And that's where real relationships are forged. If you think of year one, you referenced a player, must have been talking about Michael Brown when you were talking about
Yeah, Michael Brown, the
um,
one and only Michael Brown.
one and only Dr. Brown. I think he completed his second doctoral degree last year. Um, he and I were I was the head coach. He was an assistant coach at a local high school. We grew up together playing and those sorts of things. And being able to share those types of environments after a lifelong, relationship, other relationships, even from Bria year one, Paul Baba, probably goal of the year that year, perhaps, when his dad was in attendance in the game. He passed this year, and Paul's had a really successful college career. He's at the University of Cincinnati this year. So, but yeah, that's what I would say is from those types of conversations, you find people whose values align with yours. Matthew McConaughey says a lot about that, and those are the people that you're drawn to.
What are you looking for with this year? Obviously, I want to see goals scored. I'd like to see a win. That's the thing. You can't look on paper last year to say, well, last year's team was bad. No, they just couldn't get a W. Last year's team was great. They just couldn't catch a break. So I want to see wins, but what are you looking forward to with inside this team and this organization this year?
Yeah, I think you said it well. We have to find a way for, to be able to depend on goals, in each game. When you look back at how many games were lost by a goal, and you include draws in that, you look at how many points and where we'd be on the table if you'd scored one goal. And that doesn't account for the psychology of the team when you have a player when you're going to score. You find a groove, you flow. This is consistent with other parts in your life. And yeah, I think there's a call tomorrow. This is interesting. But there's a guy that's just joined the coaching staff that's moved to Jackson, who married a lady who went to Ole Miss. But he has, I think, 2 caps for the New Zealand national team, 200 appearances from USL Championship or MLS. I don't know. I think he was at a USL Championship club as of last November. So he's just retired. He's back in Mississippi. I was stalking both him and Mike, just being curious, and they played together at Chicago Fire. So if Elliot Collier is listening to this, hopefully he's going to at least show up for home games and bank some goals in. But yeah, I do think that finding a way to get goals would have changed last season and is a starting point for this year. I think Mike mentioned having a chat with Elliot, but it's a different mentality when you're going to have a goal.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is, and I think it's going to be a fun year. New venue, new home, same coach, new faces, a little bit of newness, a little bit of familiarity. It kind of goes a long way. Well, J-Rob, I appreciate your time hanging out with us today. I wanted to get into a long conversation about teams in North London, but I know as a Tottenham fan, you don't really want to talk about that. That's okay. I'll wear my Arsenal shirt next time we talk, and we'll be good to go. All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks.